but also that I walk through with my clients inside the program at the end of each year, or the start of the new year as we are right now, that allows us to take the learnings, like look at what was really great about the last 12 months or the last period. You could do this every 90 days if you wanted, and take that forward with us. Look at what was challenging and let go of it and decide not to take it, and make sure we've got the learnings. I dropped the worksheet for this yesterday. So if you don't have a copy of the worksheet, make the comment reflect below, or if you're watching the replay on the web page, then there is a button below here just to grab a copy of the worksheet if you want it. If you haven't already, highly recommend you print that out so you can take some notes. If you do have it in front of you, we're going to walk through it right now. So the reason that this reflect matrix is so important is because there are three things that happen to us as business owners going into a new year or a new period, new quarter. Like, you could use this whenever as a process to kind of make some space for the next level that you want to go to. So the first thing is that we take everything with us. And so you end up being like this poor little guy here, where what you're carrying forward into the new year, into the new period, is too much for you. It gets overwhelming. It gets too heavy. When you put on a backpack and you're going on a big walk, you're like got everything in the kitchen sink inside there, and off you go for your walk. And it's okay at the start because it's kind of flat and easy and you're energized and you've had a good rest. But about half an hour in, it starts to get heavier and slow you down and make things harder for you. That's what we do as business owners. Everything that we've learned, everything that we've believed, everything that we've used, all the tools and the skills we've got that's got us to this point, we hold on to it and don't let go of it. And what got you to here probably isn't going to get you there. You don't need to take everything with you. There's a whole lot of baggage, there's a whole lot of beliefs, there's a whole lot of thoughts, there's a whole lot of things that you say to yourself that you're not going to need for this next stage in your business journey. So the first mistake that you're making is you're taking everything with you. You got to put some of that stuff down. That backpack is full of rocks and you don't need all of it. The second thing that we do as business owners is that we tell stories on repeat over and over again about our experience in business. You think about anyone you know in business, they've got some stories they tell, including me. One of the stories I used to tell was about it being really hard to find good staff. It's so hard to find good staff. It's hard to find good staff these days. I also used to, we always get by. We always get it. We've always got enough money to get by. I had some stories that I used to tell, and there were differing varies of it, but the themes were all the same, right? And we tell our stories on repeat. And why does that matter? It matters because when we consistently tell a story, we're not just telling everyone else, we're telling ourselves. And so what happens is, and I'm going to talk a little bit more about this in a little bit, is that our brain believes us and goes and finds evidence that it's hard to find good staff. And so you will totally ignore any evidence that it's good to find good staff. You will totally ignore evidence that your life is abundant and that you will only see evidence that shows you that you just get by. And so those stories that are on repeat, we need to take some time to stop and have a look at them so we can move forward in a more powerful way. And then the last thing is that we forget to find the lesson. And not just do we forget to find the lesson, we forget to apply the learning. Cliche sayings are cliches for a reason. They're generally true. People say, oh, history repeats itself. Well, history repeats itself, particularly in your life and mine, in our individual lives, until we've learned the lesson. We have a saying around here. We call it feather brick trunk. It was taught to me by a mentor, a long time ago now, but it's a really great analogy for looking at how you get the lessons. And so what happens is when you need to learn something, when the world is going in a certain way in your business and you need to change the way you're doing things. I got this message a lot of times around how much overworking I was doing, how much being busy I was doing. I would get a message that would say, Sarah, you're kind of overdoing it. And it was a gentle message. It was a feather. And when you get hit by a feather, it's a little annoying and you brush it off, but it doesn't actually hurt too much. Yeah, that's cool. And so you kind of waft it off, and you don't take the lesson, and you don't take the learning from it. You just go, oh, that was a bit irritating, a bit annoying, and you waft it off. If you don't take the lesson from that feather, the universe will send you a truck. Life will send you, sorry, no, they won't send you a truck. They'll send you a brick first. They'll send you a brick. And if someone throws a brick at you, it hurts. I cut you a little bit. It's probably going to leave a bruise. And that's another lesson of the same message generally. So, and I can identify multiple feathers and multiple bricks in hindsight, because we all know hindsight's awesome, right? Where I was being sent messages that said, you're working too long, you're working too hard, you're not making time for the things that matter to you. Like, I got lots of these messages. Like I always say, sitting on the hospital bed, processing payroll with a 48-hour baby next to me was a brick. It was uncomfortable, it hurt a little bit, left a few bruises. I still talk about it today. Told me that I was probably didn't have things all sorted in my business world, but I didn't change, because it wasn't until Scarlett was 5 that I really changed. And so then the universe will send you a truck, and when you get hit by a truck, it hurts. Apparently it doesn't feel like you think it's gonna feel. I have a very dear friend who got hit by a truck last year. She says, it's not quite the same as what you think, Sarah. But you get hit by a truck, it's going to hurt. It's going to leave some scars. It's going to leave some bruises. It's going to leave some long-term damage. And so when we don't find the lesson, we keep getting the lesson until we learn it. And so it's really important that we don't forget to find the lesson in things. But this is what I see so many of us doing. This is what I did for so many years. I didn't learn the lesson, so the universe sent me that truck. So instead, we're going to do some things through this reflect matrix that's really going to help you out. We're going to empty the bag. Instead of just dragging everything forward from 2022, and if you haven't done this process before, you're probably dragging some things from 2021 and 2020. And for most of us, those 2 years have been pretty challenging. There's been some interesting things that have gone on there. So if you're dragging all that baggage forward, some of you don't just have a backpack. Some of you got a couple of suitcases you're dragging with you. So you need to stop, open the backpack up, and the extra suitcases, all that extra luggage. You've got to unpack those things and leave behind what you don't need, what's not going to help this year in 2023 be great in your business. There are going to be things that you used up until this point that have got you to this stage in your business ownership journey that you won't need going forward. So empty the bag. Decide to leave behind some stuff, because without space, particularly when it comes to your focus, time, and energy, you can't build anything new. We're going to release that stuff, because sometimes we're like, oh, I've emptied it. No, you haven't. You're still telling the stories. We're going to let go of it. We're going to release it. Inside the program, we go through some really simple processes for letting go of things, and stopping telling the stories and changing the way we speak. Start changing the things we say so that we can move forward and release it and not carry it forward. And release is really, really important. And it's important because you and I, we've got limited energy. We've got limited time, we've got limited focus. And if we're spending all our energy, time, and focus talking about, thinking about, being emotionally tied up in things that happened last year or the year before or the year before or 10 years ago, we don't have any space to create anything new. And my guess is, based on what you want to create in 2023, there's some new stuff in that. There's some new customers. There's maybe some new products or services you want to create. Maybe you want to create some extra time. Like some of my clients are like, well, I want to have Fridays off. I don't want to work on a Friday, so I'm going to take the day off. If you want to do that, you're going to have to create some space. You're going to have to release some stuff so that energetically, focus-wise, time-wise, you've got it, because you've only got a finite amount of all that stuff. And so when you create that, it allows us, so when you create that space, when you release things, it creates space for you to create more in the new year, in the future. And then lastly, we're going to use one of our superpowers. We're going to use our words, our communication, to change our language. We're going to start being really careful about what we're saying to ourselves. Because while it's important, the way that we use our words and the way that we communicate for everyone else, the most important person that's listening to your language is you. And again, we're back to those cliches again, talked about history repeating ourselves. Whether you think you can or you think you can't, you're right. And so if you're constantly telling yourself that you can't, listen, your brain hears that and it believes you. If you're constantly telling yourself you're not good with tech, or you're not good with sales, or you're too busy, you believe that. And you find evidence that supports that, because your brain doesn't want you to be wrong. You'd look stupid if you were wrong, okay? So we've got to change our language. It's really important that we start to think about deliberately, how do we use our language to make sure that our brains, are hearing what we need to hear to create the business and the year that we want to have in 2023. So what we're trying to do here is start to build aligned action. And this is really the process for you of directing your time and your focus and energy on creating what you really want. So this process is all about letting go of the stuff you don't want, let's be honest, reflecting, and then, highlighting and celebrating the stuff that's awesome, but also letting go of the things that you don't want. If you don't know what you want, that's a really good place to start. And there are some things inside the program that can help you with that, or there's something, free resources here in the group. And if that's something that you're looking for, comment below and I can direct you towards that. You need to know what you want, and then you need to take your time, focus, and energy and direct it towards that, so you're constantly taking action in that direction. And what you'll find is that over time, that becomes more easy to do. It happens with flow and with fun. It doesn't feel like walking through mud anymore, because it's aligned with what you believe, it's aligned with what you think, and it's aligned with what you want. And so the work that you need to do in your business doesn't feel so hard. So if you're finding sales really hard in your business, it's probably not aligned for you right now. There's some underlying beliefs, or what you want doesn't align with what you believe, how you think, how you talk. Those things are out of a misalignment. You might have talked about that misalignment as something called self-sabotage. It's an easy fix. You're not self-sabotaging. You just have a misalignment somewhere. And once we line all those things back up again, you'll start taking aligned action and things will move more easily for you. We're looking back briefly, because we don't want to spend too much time looking in the rear vision mirror, because it's not where we're going. But we want to make sure that we're looking back to the past where we learned the lesson. And then we want to make sure that we're taking that lesson and we're looking forward to the future to apply the lesson. Because if you don't, the lesson will come again. I cannot tell you how many times a lesson has showed up repeatedly in the form of another employee because I didn't trust my gut, or another employee because I didn't change that system, or a challenging client or customer because I didn't change a system or a process, or, finding myself exhausted at the start of a new year because I wasn't deliberate about managing my energies going into Christmas. I did years and years of that, just this constant exhaustion because I didn't listen to the lesson of December's too full of stuff. You need to stop doing some stuff so that you feel really energized and excited in January when you've had a little break to come back and get started. I was building a life that was just tiring. It didn't light me up. I don't need a holiday from my life and my business now. I could do this all day long, all the time. It jazzes me up. It energizes me. It's awesome. My life wasn't like that. My business wasn't like that for a long time. And so I want you to think about those lessons that come. And some of them are smaller and some of them are bigger and some of them will change your life for the better if you learn the lesson. The problem being is that most of us skip this step. Most of us don't take the time to stop and pause and reflect and think about how we can apply the learnings that we've had in our business. And instead we kind of go off emotions and go racing around. And emotions are great. They point us in right directions. But business is an intellectual sport. And so it takes pause and thinking and reflection in order for us to be successful in it. So this is going to bring real awareness to the learnings from 2022 and the changes you're going to make into 2023 to prevent history repeating itself. Because I don't know about you, but even though 2022 for us anyway was pretty awesome, and you might have had an okay 2022 or you might have had a terrible 2022, even though I had a great 2022, I in no way, shape or form want to create exactly the same year in 2023. There's some bigger stuff I want to do. There's some better stuff I want to do. There's some different stuff I want to do. And so I want to make sure that I don't have a groundhog year in 2023. I don't want to come back and go, oh God, that thing I said I wasn't going to do again in 2022, I've done it in 2023, because doesn't create a better life for me. And I want you to get that as well. And so it's really important that you recognize you can't make something better with the exact same ingredients. There's kind of only so many ways you can put it together. And, I'm not a great baker, although I did make an amazing chocolate mousse today. I can't make something super different with the exact same ingredients. And if we fundamentally keep this really simple, if this is 2022 and there were 4 main components for me to my business success, or not successes, the case may be, the learnings in 2022, I had some really great things that happened, and I had some okay things that happened, I had some really average thing that happened, and so I had some terrible things that happened in 2022. If I take those exact same components and I drag them forward with me into, sorry, it's a terrible arrow, but you get the picture, into 2023, never going to be an artist. Don't spend enough time on my drawing. If I take those same 4 components into 2023, there's only so many changes I can make. I'm like, you know what, those stars are really good. I want to hold on to them. And, those circles. And you can see very quickly that immediately I'm going to create the same sort of things here. So you can't create, maybe I'll make it a little bit better, but I'm not going to make massive changes. Whereas if we think about this a little differently, if we think about, before I go into 2023, I take some time to reflect. Sarah's spelling is almost as bad as, I just tried to rub that out with my finger. That's not going to work, Sarah. If we take some time to reflect, and then we spend some time releasing, letting go of what we don't need, we get a slightly different outcome. So things that went awesome in 2022, I want to hold on to them. And not only do I want to hold on to them, I want to make them bigger. I want to take the stars of 2022. Like, we had a really awesome time traveling. I ran my business while we were away in Indonesia, and got some great new clients and served my existing clients, and our tourism business back here in New Zealand ran really well, and we created some great memories as family while we were traveling in Indonesia. Well, we're going to do more of that in 2023. We're going to amplify that. There's going to be some time in Hawaii. There's going to be some time going back to see Johnny's family in the UK. There's going to be some traveling happening in Central and South America, all while still doing our business. I want to do more of that. So I've got to create space to make that bigger. But you know what? There was some stuff that I don't want to do so much of. I did a lot of internal domestic traveling in 2022 that takes up a lot of time. And I did it for all the right reasons, but it took up too much of my time. And so let's call those the triangles. And I want to stop the triangles. The triangles in 2022 were no good for me. So I'm going to release those. I'm going to say, thank you for the lessons. Thanks for everything I got out of it. And I'm going to let them go. I got some really good stuff out of the triangles, out of the squares, but I kind of need to make a few changes. I need to make a few tweaks to make that better for me, so that they can turn into diamonds for me in 2023. And you know what? The holes, the circles, the time where I was, just procrastinating or, not getting enough done, I'm going to release that in 2022 coming in 23. So all of a sudden you can see I'm creating a really different recipe for 2023. I also have some space and time for something new. Because if I'd just done exactly what I did before, I wouldn't have created all this empty space, this capacity of time, focus, and energy to make something new. And so we want to make sure that through this process, we're reflecting on things, learning from them, letting go of what we need, and amplifying what was useful. And part of this is that, if you're here and you're watching this, I know something about you. I know that you've probably got some pretty ambitious goals. And in order to create those and meet those and do the right things to get to those ambitious goals, you need to expect to grow. All of your growth happens as you start to step outside your comfort zone and learn new things. And so the bigger and more ambitious your goals are, the more challenges and problems you will encounter. I can assure you the things I encountered as 25-year-old Sarah when we first bought our business, they felt monumental to me when we dealt with them. They were like, now they're like little, like they don't even see them as issues and challenges. They're just like day-to-day running a business. But if Sarah, 25-year-old Sarah, had to deal with an international pandemic, she would not have coped, right? Because it was so far outside my comfort zone. So if you want to do things that are bigger and better than what you did last year and the year before and the year before that, it is a requirement for you to grow to meet those bigger and better goals. So it's time to reframe that as a part of the journey. The growth, the learning, the experiences, the challenges. It's time to embrace that. Be curious about it. Figure out what we can learn from it so that we can grow faster and get to our goals faster. And that's going to require you to do some work on yourself. For most of us, we rely very solely on our conscious part of our mind, which only gives us 5% of our reality. What we're doing here in reflecting and being smarter about how we use our language and letting go of the things that we did in 2022 that didn't work for us is that we are wanting to integrate what's going on in our subconscious. And we want to integrate it first and foremost into our planning, which is what we're doing here with our reflect. And we want to integrate it into our action taking, the things we do and the words we use, so that we get access to the other 95% of our brain. And so that's going to mean changing the repetitive programming. That's why this is so important. This is about going, pause, let's stop the circle, let's stop the cycle and go, what of this programming do I want to keep and what do I want to let go? And if you're like me, I'm in my 40s. I've got decades of repetitive programming that I've never stopped to look at and address until it showed up inside my business and made my life hard. So the thoughts and the words that you have told yourself and other people, so think of those repetitive stories over and over again, have become beliefs. And now you go and reinforce those by bringing evidence into your world to make them true. It's the bit of your brain that, I don't know, like me, I've had a child. So when we first got pregnant, it's the bit of your brain that all of a sudden starts seeing all the pregnant women and the happy families with the cute little babies that you didn't see last week when you didn't know you were pregnant. All of a sudden, your brain's finding you evidence to go, good idea that you got pregnant. Consciously, you got pregnant. Now your subconscious mind is going, let's make sure she knows that's a good idea. It doesn't want you to be wrong. So we want to tap into that and use it for our business as well. And so that subconscious part of your brain only ever does what you tell it to do. And not only that, it's not very good at hearing the first time round, but like children. You have to tell it to repeatedly do things, right? That's not true. If you don't tell your kids to repeatedly do things, ask them a question. but you ever hear yourself repeating yourself over and over again, nagging someone to do something? Your subconscious mind is kind of the same. And the words that you use consciously, the words that you say out loud, your conscious mind, the thoughts that you are consciously aware of, are giving instructions to the rest of your mind, the rest of your brain, and it will do what you repeatedly tell it. So if you're constantly telling it that you're no good at tech, that you're too busy, that you're not good with numbers, that you're just not good at this business, that I'm really good at, insert thing here, design, marketing, hairdressing, whatever your thing is, I'm really good at this thing here, but I'm no good at business. If you tell it that, it will find you evidence that backs that up. So this is not about perfection. Forget about perfection. We're just getting to 51% to get the tipping point over, okay? So we want to be consciously telling our brain good things about what's going to happen in 2023, deliberately telling ourselves we can do it and that it will happen, rather than repeating the stories from the past. Think about it like a garden, right? I always feel a little awkward about using a gardening analogy because I literally look at plants and they die. But if you think about a garden, something will always grow in the garden space, whether you deliberately planted it there or it accidentally got planted there. And your brain's the same. Thoughts and actions and beliefs and emotions are going to come out of your brain and form your experience of business, whether you're deliberate about this or not. You're going to get a life and a business by default or by design. And just like when you're gardening, I would rather have a garden that gave me some lettuces and some tomatoes and some carrots rather than a whole lot of weeds, right? But I had to be deliberate about it. I had to go and decide that that's what I wanted, and I had to put it in the garden, and then I had to look after it. Your mind is exactly the same, and your mind is where you create your business first. So if you haven't deliberately planted what you need in your mind for your business, you're not going to get the outcomes that you want. So the missing step here is to reflect. This is kind of like the weeding, which, to be fair, if I had a garden, which I don't, I would probably avoid the weeding too. It feels like hard work, but it's a really simple process that we go through here. So this is the weeding of what's going on for you. What was useful about 2022? We're going to leave it in the garden. What was not useful, we're going to get rid of. The most important thing here when we do this step is that you have to be truthful and transparent with yourself. You don't have to tell anyone else this stuff, but if you're not honest with yourself about where you are and what worked and what didn't work, you can never get to where you want to be. You do not get lost because you don't know where you're going. You get lost because you don't know where you are right now. And the only way you can figure out where you are right now is to be honest and transparent where you are right now. Like a GPS does not work unless it has a starting point. This is about where is the starting point. And so we're going to do a few things. We're going to celebrate all the things that were awesome and see how far we've come. And then we're going to be mindful of the lessons that we've learned so that we don't repeat them. We don't want to do that Groundhog Day thing with our lives. And if you're looking at this going, oh my God, Sarah, I have. Like 2020 was like 2021 was like 2022. And I can just see that I'm coming into another year of working way too hard for very little returns. But I love what I do, but I don't like the way I'm doing it. If that's the way you're feeling about your business, this process is super important for you. Last piece of advice here. It's really easy to beat ourselves up for making crappy decisions. And if you're anything like me, and I think you probably are, you're probably a bit of a beautiful overachiever. And so you're going to start doing this process and start going, oh, well, you could have done this better and you could have done that better. And oh God, Sarah, this is all of your own making. And why didn't you pause? You were doing the best you could with what you had back then. I was doing the best I could with what I did in 2022. And now I know better. Now I'm going to do better. And that's the same for you. So be kind and gentle as you go through this process, especially if you've had a pretty challenging year. Be gentle as those emotions come up, let them go, and recognize the learning in it so that we can then move you forward. So we're going to go through three things. We're going to celebrate. We want to celebrate what we want more of. We want to appreciate on the things that we want to expand. And so you want to take a moment to celebrate the last 12 months. We want to reflect on the mistakes, not relive them. So what we want to do here is we want to reflect on things and then reframe them into lessons. If you haven't read this book, I highly recommend it. You'll know Napoleon Hill from Think and Grow Rich, but he also wrote this book, Outwitting the Devil. I highly recommend listening to it on Audible. And one of the quotes out of that book is, there comes with every experience of temporary defeat, every failure, and every form of adversity, the seed of equivalent benefit. You will be able to look back with the benefit of hindsight and see every challenge that you've had as something to springboard you to the next big thing. Even really terrible things. And sometimes it takes a little longer to get a little distance from it, a little emotional distance from it before you can start to see the benefit. Like when someone's right in the middle of something, it's very hard to see the benefit that's coming out of it. With a little distance, you can see the great that's come out of it. And I can look back across my life and all those things that at the time I thought, oh my God, this is going to kill me. It did not. It made me and turned me into the person I am today and gave me skills and tools that allow me to live the life I have today and run the businesses I have today. And I wouldn't have done that without those failures, of which there are many, of adversities, of which there are many. But they were just temporary defeats. They were just redirections and to where I needed to be today. So great book. Highly recommend you read it. Timeless, really, is probably the best way I can describe it. And then we want to learn, because you want to not have history repeat yourself. Talk about that over and over again. So we want to make sure that from every challenge, from every roadblock that you've had in 2022, that you take the lesson. And then you want to release the past. It's not in alignment with the business and life you're creating in 2023. You want to let go of it. You've got to make space for the new, as I showed you earlier. So on your reflect matrix, you want to go through and you want to work through some questions. You want to think about in the wins. You know, what are you most proud of in the last 12 months? What did you overcome? What did you create in the past year? Where did you grow? What are you better at? What did you complete in 2022? Or what are you so close to completion, it may as well be. 80% is close enough. So if you're 80% of the way there, you're done. Write that stuff down. What are some positive habits and rituals and patterns that showed up for you in 2022? We're going to pop those in the wins. In the challenges, we're going to be thinking about what were some of the mistakes you either experienced or you created for yourself. Because, you know, we can either have some environmental stuff that's challenging or we can create it all of our own making. What happened for you in 2022 that was challenging? What were some of the obstacles? What were some negative patterns that show up for you again and again and again? You know, have you got some procrastination going on? Do you have some what you would call self-sabotage going on? Are you slow to ask for help? Do you never ask for help? Do you work really, really hard but don't see too many results? So what are some challenges that are going up? And what did you intend to get done in 2022 that you haven't got done? What was it that was on the list that you haven't ticked off? And then the most important bit here is that for every one of those challenges, I want you to go through and go, what was the lesson? What did you learn from each of those challenges? How did those lessons serve you and make 2022 a year that's going to help you leap into 2023 and make it your best year yet? And which one of those lessons, most importantly, are you committed to learning? And then once you've figured those out, you're going to look at what am I going to let go? What am I committed to letting go of to make space for the new? What am I letting go of from 2022 so I can create space for 2023? So if you haven't got a copy of this matrix, of the workbook that I've just gone through, comment reflect below. Myself or my amazing right-hand gal, Dolly, will get a copy to you. In the meantime, go through, do the process because nothing works unless you work it. And if you have any questions, reach out. More than happy to answer. Have a wonderful, wonderful day.